started. We are on, I think that's chapter 9. Yeah. Information systems or introduction to information systems, which basically, yes. So, before we get started, does anyone in here know why information or how information flows like in an organization or any organization? How does information flow? So first of all, you have, in most organizations, you have 5 basic functions within that organization. One of them, and I don't know if you can see this, sorry about the unartistic illustration, but you have accounting, you have marketing, you have HR, production, and then research. Those are the 5 basic functions in any organization. Why? Why would you even have an accounting department in an organization? Also finances, correct. So that's information that they have. Why would you have marketing? What does marketing do?
Advertisement.
All together?
Advertisement.
Advertising, yep. So marketing is responsible for really sales and promotion and things like that. We have a marketing department, that's what they do. They give out material, they brand little stuff with your information on it. When you have a conference or something like that, you'll have a pen, a cup, or whatever. But that's what marketing do. That's also data. HR. Why is HR important? Why is it even function? Because HR is responsible for basically bringing talent into the organization. So marketing helps promote that, but HR is actually the department that actually handles your paperwork. So when you become a new employee, you get onboarded, you get processed, and that's information, that's data as well. That's your address, your name, your ID, your salary, and things like that. That's one of the other functions. How about production? Anybody? There's a production in every organization.
The work that's being done, the service that's being performed.
Very good. So that's how you measure your success, and not that success, but because sometimes in production, if you're not producing well, there's probably a reason. So it helps the organization with that kind of data and the numbers. How many units are we putting out? And how many are we not putting out? How many are defective? So on and so forth. So, and then research. What about research? So research tells your organization, the data from research tells your organization how to improve upon what they're doing currently, or what the competition is doing that's better than what you're doing, or something along those lines. So that's how you look at that. So all of this is data, and it flows between the organization. So why would research even be concerned with production? You probably won't, but research may help you find out that you can do something better to produce more, things like that. So as a result of that data that's across these functions or departments, you have managerial levels. You have the top management, you have middle management, and you have your supervisor, which basically is the day-to-day daily operation in any organization. And so as a result of that, you should have a supervisor, a mid-level, and a top level in all of these departments that share the information. That chart over there, it looks crazy, but the bottom line, it shows you how information should flow in the organization, and it's the same triangle, and it represents top, middle, and supervisor. So the information at the supervisory level can only flow up, because that's the basics of an organization. That's what really runs the company, because here is where all of your day-to-day happens. Then you go to middle. Anybody knows what middle? We know day-to-day, so let's put that there real quick. So day-to-day is a supervisory function. That's what most supervisors and most organizations handle, the day-to-day. Right? So why is that important? And why is it only flowing up? All right, it's only flowing up because that's where it initiates. So that's the data that helps the organization understand what they do from day to day. The next level, middle management, however, is responsible for what? Anybody?
Week to week.
Say again?
Week to week.
I'm sorry.
Weekly?
Weekly?
Yeah.
You could say that, and you kind of, that kind of hits on it, but middle management is more concerned with the day-to-day, what problems are occurring in the day-to-day, right? So middle management is supposedly the problem solving, I will say that, even though problem solving happens hopefully at the supervisor handling day-to-day stuff, but this is a little more strategic in nature, because they help day-to-day resolve problems. So if something can't be resolved on a day-to-day, it should be going to middle management. So middle management can come up with a solution to fix what may be happening day-to-day. All right? Then you have, I didn't mean to put that there, but I'll put it on this side. So you have top management. And so what is top management mostly concerned with? More strategic. So really, your top level is mostly concerned with how we gonna go, what we gonna do going forward. What is the thinking going forward? They're thinking already of what position they're gonna be in next year, right? So that's your top level. They always are concerned with how can we position ourselves. Let me put this up here. How can we position ourselves next year? So their job is to strategize. What could be a factor for a top level executive to concern themselves with? Any ideas of what they really look at? And I'm talking from a realistic standpoint, not theoretically. I mean, actually sitting at a desk, what are they thinking about? What are they looking at? What are they strategizing on? You know, because we talk about warehouse, if you will, a person that runs off, well, not really run, but is in charge of over a bunch of warehouses that have a bunch of products that ship all over the place, just as an example. And we start talking about supply chain, the flow of goods and services from the producer to the consumer. Why would top level be concerned with that? You know? And the whole point of it is, if you look at the first definition, it says information system, combination technology, people, and procedures used to organize, analyze, and store data. So that's what happens in this, but these are the main functions that have to do that. And once these functions, or I should say departments, to keep it simple, these departments, they use the technology and they have certain rules in place so they can report that, you know? They can organize that, they can store that, all that happens. And then you have these information system types, which include transaction processing, management, expert. Anybody know what when they say transcript processing, what that really means? I'm gonna just add to this. What is a transcript processing? What is a transcript process? It's called TPS. TPS. So every time you make a purchase, that's a transcript, right? No matter what you're purchasing, let's say you're buying gas. When you go put your credit card and go purchase gas, there's a transaction that takes place, right? And that happens throughout business. A transaction is a transaction. Like in customer service, I can relate it to customer service also. If you're in customer service and you're answering phones, what is your transaction?
The amount of clients you have.
Say again?
The amount of clients you have.
Amount of clients or the amount of calls? If you're taking calls in a call center, you write clients, but the big product is answering phones all day. So that's the transaction. So that phone call is a transaction. So you can apply a transaction process to anything you do. Just think about it as a result of a product. It could be a tangible thing, it could be a talking on the phone thing. Whatever that is, it's still considered a TPS. And it's stored somewhere. If you look at that decision, at that definition, store data. So as I get calls in a call center, I'm gonna just use that and stay on that. If I'm in a call center and I'm getting calls every day, how do you think that's recorded, each person that calls into your organization? Anytime you get a call into an organization asking for anything, product support, technical support, it doesn't matter, it's still a call in. How is that stored? Anybody can kind of think about that? In a database, right? So when you talking about an information system is doing this thing. It's taking the technology, in a database, that's technology, and then the people that are answering the phones have to be aware or understanding of how to use the technology, how to store the data, how to pick it back up if you need to pull it back up, things like that. We have a program, what is that called? Virtual Assistant. Well, basically, it answers the phone calls. So that's another piece of technology that's being used to store the data, but at the same time, the virtual assistant will assist also. So that's another part of technology that's being used, especially when we're talking about in an information system world, and we're talking about transaction processes. Even this simple transaction process, even as simple as a phone call, it gets stored and it's used for purposes. How do you improve your phone call? How you do whatever. But the bottom line is you need to know TPS, transaction processing system, is the basics. Like you have the 5 basic functions, accounting and all these things here, HR, production, and resources. Really, most people look at when you dealing with calls coming in, and that's a product. It's more based on production, but at the same time, the next level, the problem-solving level, the middle management level, has to find a way to be more efficient every time, because as you're taking these in, there's always room for improvement when you're in a call center and things like that. A lot of times, the agency or the organization monitors calls. And the reason why it monitors calls, anybody know? When you're monitoring, what are you doing? You're pretty much analyzing. So as you're monitoring things, you're analyzing what you're hearing, you're trying to make it better, things like that. So then they have processings, we talked about, then they have management, that's the problem solving. So according to, let's see, hold on 1 second. I want to make sure I get that right. Yeah, so middle, when we talk about each day, every day, there's no real planning here because you're receiving calls in, so there's no real planning necessary. The only planning is done here. So we go, I got a lot, I'm right on the board. So they're really planning, right? How are we gonna handle these kind of calls? So when the supervisor gets the calls in from day to day, as they deal with them, middle management is supposed to be planning for the event of something happens, what do we do next? So this is really tactical in nature. So basically planning. So that's what middle management is supposed to be doing. Top level doesn't plan. A lot of people think that, but top level executes. They do that based on what the middle management tells them. The information they tell top management can make decisions. So they're strategic and they make decisions. That's how most people get their information on where they're going. Like they have a company, I can't remember the name. That's like the goal of the organization. I don't know if anybody knows, but we have a statement, a vision statement, or something like that.
A memo?
Say again?
A memo?
I don't know. I've never seen it as a memo, but I've seen it going out as a memo. But usually it's something that's posted all around the organization that says, our goal is to make every student in the state of Georgia available for getting funding for hope. That's the goal. Let's just say it like that. And that's called a statement, a vision statement, a company statement, or whatever you want to call it. But top level management is responsible for that. Now, there are some tools that can help middle management to make these plans. And so when they make these plans, supervisors are supposed to abide by the plan so that way they can get the information they need in an orderly fashion and things like that. So that middle level, got it in here. So the middle level uses a DSS and an MIS. Might as well use this book. Anybody know what a DSS, a decision support system, is? That's what they use here. So this is TPS, right, for the day-to-day. That's everyday transactions that happen and occur. And then here, there's a DSS and a MIS. Anybody? These are all just tools that they use at the different levels to help with seeing how they're doing and what they're doing and why they're doing this. Okay, so these are computer-based information systems. A DSS, they use data from the TPS and a set of flexible analytical tools to support the managers. And so basically, they put information in a system, a DSS system, and it gives them different scenarios, different ways to handle or attack a issue. And when I say issue, like, you know, like a day-to-day problem, like why do we keep getting our phones, or why are our phones dropping calls? That's a good example. Well, we don't know why the phone is dropping calls. We just know in the transaction, right, that in that transaction, one of the transactions says we have 4 calls that would drop. Why is that important? To know, why is that kind of data important to even store, collect, or even analyze? So as an organization, you want to know why these calls are dropping. It could be the phone system. It could be one of your people that's answering hanging up. And it happens in a call center. It happens. So this data, whether it's someone hanging up or someone doing something different procedure-wise, or something is really wrong with the phone system, we have to know that. We need to know that. If our transactions are saying we got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 drop calls, we need to find out why. So middle management sees that and they make a plan, because they put that data into a DSS. And that DSS, it makes a decision. Well, it start giving case scenarios. What happened this, what happened here, what happened here, what happened. And the middle manager looks at this and they try to make a decision. But they still have to report that information to top management, stuff like that. Or sometimes, if the problem is resolved, sometimes top management doesn't have to necessarily get that report or information, but it still has to be stored. Okay, so that's what's important about that. How does artificial intelligence play in this? Y'all in the artificial intelligence age, y'all, that's that didn't come up when I was born, but we here now. So artificial intelligence is supposed to do things like I said earlier, virtual assistants. So when you start making a plan, because you do know that artificial intelligence, when you're applying it to your organization, it has to be trained, right? Yes, sir.
It's an area of computer science that focuses on intelligent machines.
Okay, what does that mean? You read it, what does it mean?
It helps you gain knowledge.
Very good. That's exactly right. So, but also the big thing on top of that is artificial intelligence is artificial. So again, it has to be trained. So in our organization, I mentioned virtual assistants, which helps in our call center. It answers calls. Most of the calls, I would say 70% of the calls can be handled by virtual assistants. You know, it knows enough to go, yep, do this, that. But the 30% that it doesn't know, it has to be trained. And once it's trained to get that 30%, it's going to be another percent of stuff that it just has to be trained. That's how it goes. Because things change every day. And you look at this transaction, that's every day, and that scenario can change. That's good because we have the tools and the technology to handle that. And that's where the planning comes in at. Now, why would I plan to do this, but don't have no money to do this?
Be prepared.
So, yeah. So as a middle manager, I'm planning. I'm saying, hey, we need to upgrade this. We need to do this. We need to do that. And top management is saying, how much is it going to cost? Because that's what they mostly are concerned with, is what something's going to cost to tackle the problem. So in this case scenario, if I'm saying my TPS, my transactional stuff, is telling me I have calls being dropped in my call center. Middle management is saying, how do we fix it? This is how we propose to fix it. We're gonna add a artificial intelligence to, or another piece to help train our artificial intelligence, which in this case is virtual assistants. So that means more manpower, more hours, more this, more that. Now you start seeing the 5 basic functions take place. Because now HR is gonna see, you need more man hours, how much over their time, do we start talking about labor rights and all these other things. So it's a big picture, but the point that I'm trying to create and show is that information is flowing. And once information is flowing properly and in the right places, then it can achieve what it needs to achieve. But as soon as it's a breakdown, like if they don't report the problem here to the next level, then we already stuck here. Now we got a bigger problem, because now we may lose customers because we get a phone call dropped. You in the middle of a conversation with a customer and they get dropped. They might not like that. So that's the whole point. So flowing of information, very important. And by the way, once middle management sees a need for basically purchasing something or getting some more out of their existing system, they got to get approval for budget. So they got to get approval to pay for all this. The man hours, the equipment, things like that. Okay? Any questions? So what level is responsible for planning? Out of the managerial levels, what level is responsible for planning? Say again? Middle. Yeah. So that MIS. So these two things are basically databases, for the most part, that assist the middle manager in planning. That's the main thing you really want to know. And then I did not mention, but top level, once they get it, how does I guess that's ESS. How does anybody know? How does a top or a president of a company look at data or information? Anybody know? Well, surely you won't send the president a 50-page document, would you? Hopefully you don't, because they're gonna send it right back to you and tell you to summarize this. I ain't got that kind of time.
Condensed version.
Yeah, and so and I'm serious. Reality, if a president of a company has time to read a 50-page document, I'm concerned. Because that means he has more time to do that versus having people in place that do that for him, that tell him what all this means. He can go back and read it on his own time. But he needs something concise, something summarized, so he can get right to the point and go, okay, this the month, this what happened, do, and he ain't looking at all these words about explaining that. He needs graphics, or she needs graphics. They need something picture-wise, like you say, a picture's worth 1,000 words. It's really true, especially when it comes to business and organizations. If they look at a picture, then they can ask the kind of questions they need to ask versus reading all of the stuff, then coming to, what does this say? What does this mean? Give them the picture. And by the way, this ESS for top level, it does exactly that. So, so when you got an ESS, it uses internal data from the MIS, middle management, and the TPS, the supervisor, to come up with all the data that's needed. Because managers are gonna plan, supervisors are gonna report, and between the TPS and the MIS, the top level, they're not gonna weed through all of that. They need that to be all combined and concise, and usually that's in the form of usually of either a presentation or some kind of graphics that explains all of that, okay? All right? And what that ESS also does, when it combines those two, the TPS and the MIS data, it will produce some graphics. It will produce some numbers that are very comparable by month. It depends on how you want the report. You can get it on demand, you can do it by monthly, what they call increment, and what's the other one? Then a standard regular, the report runs every month. Type that kind of thing, okay? Let's see, where am I at?
Your key definitions.
Yeah. All right. So we talked a little bit about the supply chain, the flow of goods and services from the producer to the consumer. Why is that important?
Excuse me.
Because if a top manager has a facility in, let's call it Idaho. I'm not picking on Idaho, I'm just saying. I have a warehouse there. All of a sudden, Idaho, what part of the country is Idaho in? Anybody know?
Midwest?
Midwest? Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay. So in the Midwest, they are prone to weather, cold weather, bad weather, not like anybody else, but more lasting longer and more devastating. Why would that matter to a president of a company that has a warehouse in Idaho?
Might affect how he
Logistics.
runs that warehouse.
How he runs the warehouse?
Might affect how many people can make it there, or
What about delivery?
that too.
So this is the thing. So as we start talking about information flowing from a supervisor, which should report people not coming to work, right? The supervisor should be like, hey, we got 10 people out today. It's 30 below zero. And nobody's coming to work, and that's understandable. But that information still has to flow so we can make a decision. We need to do, so if our people are not showing up for work, what does that mean for production? Slow down. So your product is gonna probably go to a grinding halt. And you ain't gonna produce anything. So now that warehouse, now I gotta communicate with that person, that supervisor at that warehouse and say, hey, what are our numbers? What are our levels? How many units do we have of this? Because we can't get nothing out because of the weather. So the president of the company probably has the weather channel on all the time. These are some of the things, okay? So that's how information flows. And speaking of the supply chain, like sometimes you can't get eggs, or eggs cost $10 a carton, and so on and so forth. All these are things that happen, and they're decisions that have to be made. So as long as you have the information, you are equipped to make the best decision, as long as you have the information. You don't have the information, you can't make a good decision. And so that's where your supervisor comes in at. And typically, most of it relies on a supervisor because they see it before anybody else would see it. Now, as far as weather conditions, I don't expect my supervisor to be watching the news necessarily and the weather. So that should pretty much come from the president or even a manager to make that decision. So we have this thing called customer relationship management. So you got these notes, these activities, and these matrices that are all in a working system that helps with all the customers and why is this important? Why is your customer relationship important?
You need to have people who reliably purchase.
Yeah, reliably purchase, but what about how they feel about your mode of business?
Metrics too.
So it doesn't matter that your relationship with your customer is built on, let's call it trust. Does that matter? It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything, I mean, we talk about client retention. So if someone, I can spend my money wherever I wanna spend my money. It doesn't have to be with you. So you gotta keep that in mind when you start talking about how is your customer relationship. How are you managing that, I should say? Because it's important to retain a customer. Nowadays, if you got a good product, you have a good product. But if you have a salesperson that treat people like trash, it's gonna be hard to keep that salesperson and give people that product. Because if you have a good product, they're gonna buy it typically regardless of how they're being dealt with. But it's gonna make it harder because you can get a lot of complaints and you're gonna get a lot. I'll give you another example. And this is kind of far-fetched, but I don't know if you remember the health executive that got gunned down in New York. He was over a major health, and this came from denying a customer a claim.
That was crazy, I was like, what is this?
Yeah, so all I'm saying is that how your customer relationship is dealt with and managed, it matters. It really matters. I mean, nowadays, because we do a lot of stuff online, we don't see people, so we don't have that warm, tender touch when you're talking to somebody. I can't see your emotions. I'm online handling a phone call. That can spiral into something bigger if you don't take care of this part. So that's still data. We still talking about flowing of data, flowing of information. So who would probably get that? Probably the customer service supervisor. Right? We got this guy, he complaining about this, and this. It needs to be reported. Right? If it doesn't get reported, it goes on. Like apparently this thing with this guy was basically ignored. And he took it upon himself to deal with the situation on his own. So that's the kind of thing that we don't talk about in classroom that could spiral to. But if we take care of this part and try to address it the best way, because you can't please everybody. It's hard to please everybody. I mean, it's almost impossible to please everybody because people have their quirks too. But the point is, pay attention to it, recognize it, and report it, so that way you'll know. They got all kinds of things in place for this, but the bottom line is you need to know CRM is your customer relationship management, and it is a piece of software, and in that software, you can make notes and things like that based on this person that's getting this, for this customer, I should say. So that's important. What else? Cryptocurrency. Anybody? What is it? Come on, talk to me. I know y'all, some of y'all didn't dabble in crypto. No investments? So what does crypto mean?
Digital money.
Crypto is digital money. So crypto is encryption. Currency is money. So it's encrypted currency, or in other words, digital money. But the bottom line is this, a lot of people don't know nothing about this.
I don't know much.
Yeah, it's because it uses an algorithm, and it's a whole bunch of different, there's a whole bunch of different cryptocurrencies. Yeah, it's about at least 7, 8 of them. But the bottom line, Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. It's the one they all go off of. So Bitcoin is the model for cryptocurrency. Now all of them has these different deviations of it. Bottom line is that's going to soon play a big role, I feel, in how we have the transactions and money. Because it's one, hard to trace. That's what makes it already a kind of a scary tactic. And then there's no recovery. Because who is the person that's responsible for the transaction? The what?
The people.
Yeah, exactly. And so as a result, you have this blockchain, right? And it's really, like I say, it's a record-keeping technology, and you see who it was developed by. And it's two parts, the piece of digital information and the public database. So the blockchain is a group of digital blocks of information that are stored in the public. That's what scares most people that don't know how to do this. Because, okay, so the information is out there in the public, no kind of authority, because that's what decentralized is, no kind of authority or rules, basically rules, but it makes it harder for people to really try to understand. You really gotta get into this to understand. You gotta spend some time with this, because you can't just go out there, because they'll tell you real quick, big bold letters, investment in this is a risk. You know, and it's a risk because, again, if you don't know what you're doing, it makes it harder to recover, because it's hard to dig that information out, who originally set up the whole transaction. So we go back to the TPS. So that's a transaction processing system. So if that's the case, and you're applying it to blockchain, then it's harder, and that's why most people are afraid or don't know. And plus, it's not enough information out there for me, necessarily. But the bottom line is, just know that cryptocurrency, crypto is
Encryption.
yes, thank you. Encryption and currency is money, so it's encrypted money. And so when you make a transaction, it puts it in this blockchain. It keeps a record. That's the safe thing and the good thing about it. It always keeps a record of it that you don't never have to worry about if you know how to get back into the database and reclaim it. So that's the scary part. You got to know your basically your login. I'll call it that, to access that data. Okay. Anybody got anything else to offer about cryptocurrency and blockchain? All right. So in an information system that you have all these components somewhere, somehow, some way, you have this technology and you have hardware, software, and data. What do we know about hardware, software, and data? What do we know about hardware?
Physical.
Physical, thank you. What do we know about software?
Programming.
And you have one without the other.
No.
So your hardware just sits here, physically. Your software does what to your hardware?
Facilitates connection.
Allows you to operate it.
So it communicates. It gives the hardware set of instructions to follow. That's what software does, right? And what's the data part?
Yeah.
Information that's communicated.
The information. So as you give the hardware a set of instructions about the data, then it should execute and do what you need it to do, right? And if it's not doing that, what's the problem? If it's not executing properly, if your software is not executing your data properly, what's the problem? What's typically the problem? What's the most occurring problem?
Software needs to be updated.
Software is updated, or it could just be old, like you said. It needs to be looked at by the programmer. They could have missed something in the code. There could be a bug in the software, whatever. But the bottom line is, in an information system, when you're dealing with technology, these are the three things that have to be included, because that's what runs all technology: hardware, software, and data. Period. You know? As far as hardware, we understand that, so we're not gonna go all into necessarily that, but you know what hardware is, we know that. We know what software is, okay? We said set of instructions, you can't touch it. What do they mean by not touchable? Anybody?
You can't physically interact with it.
You can't interact with it
Physically,
physically, okay,
not physically.
not physical. Anybody else? Alright, so yeah, so that's pretty much what it is. And to be honest with you, as far as software is concerned, most of the time, it's all about, like I said, the coding. So if the coding is right, the set of instructions are good, it's hard to even mess with code unless it's open source, right? Do you understand that part? You can't go out there and just willy-nilly with a program, right? Because the programmer has certain things that you can't get to unless they make it open source. What does open source mean?
Anyone can access it.
Anyone can go in there and play around with it. Wiki is an example of a piece of software that people can go in, modify, change, do up. Mac won't allow you to do that, right? So you gotta think about that also when you start talking about information systems, how accessible it is, especially in this age of hacking and getting access or trying to get into people's systems and things like that. It's crazy. All right, so what about procedures? So we got technology, we got people, and then we got procedures. So you have the technology, right? Then you got the people that run the technology, the programmers, all these people. Then there's procedures. Why is procedures in there?
Because it's what gets the technology to do what the people want it to do.
Okay,
It's a set of like rules and operations that you have to perform to get it.
right. And so everything has a procedure. Really, a lot of programmers call it, I think I've heard them say, routine. They run a routine,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So they run a routine, so that's the computer software running a routine. They run certain routines, blah, blah, blah. As far as people concerned, procedures is concerned, that's the rules by which you conduct your actions, really, honestly. And so, coming to work on time really could be considered as a procedure for that. But it's more talking about software for the most part. But nonetheless, procedures are procedures. There are rules to go by. That's the main thing.
Okay.
All right? Then they give you an example of a company that sells pencils, how it goes through the flow, warehouse, shipping, ultimately. So this is the whole thing. You do it online, then once you do it online, pencil sales, it goes into a computer database once it keeps track. What's the whole point of doing that? Keeping track. In an information system, what's the whole point of keeping track? I said record keeping in Bitcoin, but the same thing applies with your products. Have you ever been to Walmart and go on a shelf to get a pair of socks, for example, and they don't have no more on the shelf, but these are the socks you want to buy? So what happens if you call a salesperson over there? What do they normally do? Or someone that works in Walmart. If you bring them over there, hey, let's just forget socks, let's call it pencils. There are no more of these pencils, I want to purchase these pencils. What do they do?
We'll check the back.
They check the back?
Yeah, we'll check their data system to see if they have any.
Yeah. So first thing I know, they go and they pull out that little thing and they go and do this right here and they look. And then you also can tell them, it's the good news about information system. If there is none in stock, like you said, they will go back and check for you. A lot of times they just go back and I never see them no more and they just go. But the bottom line is you can also say to them, because it's an information system that's connected to other stores, for example, you can see which store actually has it. And that's important because instead of running over to that store and they don't have it, or run over there and they don't have it after they tell you they have it, so you can call. you know, and you can see, I do different things, but the bottom line is, I wanna express how information flows in an information system. And as long as they have that thing there, they can check, at least now you can see some results versus going, you know what, I'm just not, I'm not gonna go across town to the other Walmart or whatever. At least you know another Walmart have, or they have it in the store. Oh, it says I have 3. Well, check the back. They may or may not have it, but that's the flaw in an information system. They got the inventory, they can look at the inventory, but sometimes the inventory is not accurately updated. That's the other problem in an information system, especially if the data is not reflected properly. Because you gotta take a person and go, okay, once you do that, you would think that the system itself would subtract 1 or add 1, however they do it. But sometimes that just gets misused. Somebody could have stole one of them in the store. I mean, I don't know, I'm just saying, those are the flaws in some information systems. You gotta be aware of that as well. So we deal with it and just know that it goes through a process, and it is part of an information system, excuse me. All right, types of information systems. I already talked to you about the TPS, that's the day-to-day, everyday transactions. Then you have a management information system. That's one of those things that middle managers use to articulate the data that they receive from the TPS, the transactional day-to-day, everyday, and plus the things that they have in the management information system, the planning part of it. So that's what a MIS really does. It helps plan, helps middle managers plan. All right, and then there's that decision support system, which is pretty much a database that you put the numbers in, and it spits out all different case scenarios for you to look at and decide. That's why it's called a decision support system. When you put the numbers in, then you can support the decision that you make based on the information that you put in that system, okay? And upper management or top management needs that because they have to ultimately make a decision for the whole entire company, okay? And then you have expert systems. What is an expert system?
Specialized equipment and software.
What's that? Specialized what?
Specialized equipment and software.
Okay, I accept that. So, also, AI is an expert system, right? Because it's been trained and the logarithms are there and the data is there to support. If you ask it a question, it won't give you some false statement, if you will. It should give you expert knowledge, because who builds expert systems?
Experts.
Right, the expert in that field should be teaching the expert system how to answer the questions. And I know that personally because, like I told you, in our company, we have a virtual assistant, and we have to train it for what questions are being asked, because this is a system, this is the expert system that's answering our phone calls on a day-to-day. So when it answers the phone calls, it needs to know what to tell a customer when they hear the question. So we gotta train them on the question, and we gotta train them on the answer. And once we do that, we create a database for the expert system to look through and answer based on what's being told. That's how that works, okay? Alright, let's see what else. So we got that, those are information system types. And we talked a little bit about artificial intelligence. So I was in Arizona, and, I have my phone. I was in Arizona, and I was pulling up to a stop light. And I looked to my left, and I didn't see nobody in the car. And that's the first time I've seen it on an actual street with traffic. And I said, hold on, I had to pull up and I had to, video that. Cause it has a lot of monitors on it. Like it has a big, like,
Dome.
apparatus on the top of the car. It has apparatuses on the sides of the car. I understand that because it needs to gather that information. So as far as I'm concerned, artificial intelligence is using data input because that's what's collected, and that's how it knows that GPS that's on the top. That's how it knows how it's positioning itself. Because I still think that it's still kind of scary right now to deal with a self-driven car necessarily. Now I would say more so, because it really shocked me, but it didn't do anything crazy. It maintained the lane, it sped up, it stopped, it did all these things. And I was just amazed, really honestly, about the accuracy of gathering all that data and using it to stop and do all these things, accelerate. That's really awesome. It reminds me of the Jetsons. I don't know if y'all are old enough, but the Jetsons kind of did that, but it was more of a spacecraft, not a car. But either way, it's here today, and it helps a lot. How do you feel about artificial intelligence? Do you know enough about it now? Because you get bombarded by it every day. That's just the reality of where we live at. Some people fear it, some people don't trust it. Anybody ever seen iRobot?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's kind of if you haven't, I would suggest you check it out. It kind of gives you a made-up scenario of if robots could think on their own. I'll just put it that way. All right. So here's a discussion. How do I interact with information systems in my everyday life? Anybody work with systems that collect data like a virtual assistant, things like anybody work in that atmosphere? Anybody? Nobody? How often do you use AI every day?
Every time I talk to Siri.
Every time you talk to Siri, that's right. That's a good use. Because I mean, I know I use Siri a lot. I ask her or him or whatever it is to answer certain questions, come right back with it, and it's quick, and I think it's a benefit, for my life, because it is an information system. How do information systems benefit business?
I'm assuming they just, they remove a lot of stuff, so I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, such is life. Any stage you go through in life, there's always a plus and a minus. There's always a give and a take. That's just how it goes. That's just the nature. But how does it benefit businesses is really through kind of what we discussed. It make decisions. So with having an information system, you have a repository that you can pull from. That's the whole point of an information system. And once you have that knowledge, you don't have to think about a lot of stuff because you can use the information system to extract that data that's already in there. You don't need to recreate the wheel necessarily. Now, there is a thought process in everything you do. That's what improves processes, and that's what makes information systems better. But the bottom line is, it should be benefiting them to make a thorough decision based on already having the knowledge or the information or the data that they already need. And then they can extract from that and make their own case scenario, because the human being is always going to be a part of any system, period. And that's where we can make decisions to go, all right, that weather is crazy over there. We're not trying to send no trucks out there. Not necessarily information systems are going to tell you that, hey, don't send a truck out on a bad weather day that is not normal. The information unless you train it to look for that. And that's where we come in as the human beings. Alright, so when I buy something, how many people had to work together to make that transaction possible? We can't even imagine how, it's kind of this thing here. That, how many people get involved in this process? Okay? So that's the real, crux. How does that actually go about? You know? Alright, so let's see here. So with that being said, let's look at this. Alright, with that being said, this is just a little short video on artificial intelligence.
When most people hear the phrase artificial intelligence, they imagine futuristic computers with the ability to reason and respond just like humans. Some people worry about what's been called the technological singularity. This is a hypothetical point in the future when artificial intelligence will surpass human intelligence, triggering an explosion in technology advancement that could threaten the human race. In this video, we won't weigh in on whether machines could ever achieve superintelligence and take over the world, but we will talk about some advances in artificial intelligence that already have a tremendous impact on our lives. Artificial intelligence is an area of computer science that focuses on intelligent machines. AI has already been implemented in various technologies, ranging from computer games and simple voice recognition to advanced robotics and expert systems. Of course, there are still some important things that humans do better than computers. For example, humans are better at understanding and expressing emotion, producing creative artwork, and performing non-repetitive physical tasks. We're also better at certain forms of problem solving that require synthesizing different sources of information and determining what's most important. But there are other things that computers do better than we can. Let's start with robotics, where self-driving cars and autonomous drones have the potential to be safer and more efficient than their human-operated counterparts. Artificial intelligence enters the picture when cars, drones, and other robots are programmed to learn from their mistakes without direct human intervention. Another example is in natural language processing. This includes speech recognition and translation into different languages, such as English to Spanish. After converting speech into text, AI technology can be used to process the meaning of the text and carry on a basic conversation. Computer programs called chatbots can resolve common customer service concerns quickly and efficiently. Chatbots become more effective as they add new customer interactions to their knowledge base. Artificial intelligence is used heavily in expert systems, which are programs designed to solve complex problems in a specific domain. For example, expert systems have been developed to analyze the lubricating fluid used during oil drilling and to help doctors diagnose diseases. These systems are programmed as a complex web of conditional if-then statements. A more recent AI technology built on neural networks is designed to closely mimic the physical connections of the human brain. Sometimes called deep learning, neural networks are better than traditional expert systems in accepting multiple inputs and recognizing patterns in raw data. A final example of artificial intelligence is in big data analytics. Data mining experts use AI and machine learning algorithms that discover patterns in vast amounts of data collected from internet searches, social media posts, customer transactions, and even weather sensors. These patterns can help businesses better understand their customers and help data scientists identify potential threats. Artificial intelligence research has produced a wide range of technologies that significantly influence human lives. Robotics technology can be programmed to automate repetitive tasks and learn from mistakes in responding to sensory input. Natural language technologies can recognize humans.
Alright, so analytics. Big talk about analytics, big data analytics. So, as it said, using patterns, things like that, to have a better relationship with your customer. Why is that important? I talked about that earlier in the CRM. Customer relationship management is very important, like especially if you're gathering all this information, all this data about your customer, that means you should be better equipped to serve the customer, however that looks. And if that means the online presence or whatever it means, that's what you use the analytics to do, to accomplish. That's the whole point of it, is if you're gonna have it and not use it, then what's the point of gathering the information? Because the point of it is to better serve the customer, because that's really your basis for your money, for your company, and for your organization, and really for improving the product also. It's also used for that as well. So take that with you and think about that as you navigate life, and know that something is tracking you. Big data is big money. So the other thing is, when you do a free account, when you create a free account, it's not necessarily free. It's really the data that they're collecting from you using that free account. I don't know about you all, but I've gotten to the point where I put fake information in when I create an account. I fake username, fake address, fake this, fake that, But the bottom line is, just so I can use whatever I'm trying to use it for. But if you're like most people and you're putting information out there, they're collecting that. If you can't get it back, you can't go, I want that back, that's not how it would work. Once they collect their data, once they collect your data, it's up for sale, whether it's free or not free, all right? So, anybody got anything to add to that? All right, let's switch gears. How are we? Just 1 second. Okay, so robotics. What's the point? Oh, stop. Technological singularity. Did you understand what they said about that, what that means? iRobot is a great example. If you look at that movie, Terminator is also good. So but these are things, man, that we should be talking about, discussing, and know a good bit about. Robotics, for example. I got a good friend, teaches robotics, and I will tell you, actually he had the robotic dog at where I met him at, and that thing is crazy. It'll bite you, just like a regular dog. Nope.
No?
Nope.
I got no sound?
Nope. It didn't make a sound.
I guess they can put one in, huh?
Yeah, I'm sure it probably has that capability. They just didn't demonstrate that.
Yeah.
But I look at robotics as really, really, after seeing it actually, and not just hearing about it. I really like robotics because a lot of times it can be used in the place of a person, like search and rescue, where a person would be in danger. They got robotics that can go in and do all of that. Even dig and certain things and things like that. Drones also. So, I've always been interested in drones for my DJ business because I can get a lot of pictures that you won't normally get with a camera, right? And so, only thing I just recently found out, and I know there's a feature on there that you hit that says home, and it'll bring the drone back to your location. Even when it senses it's running out of time, it senses it adjusts enough to where it's not gonna go out that far, if it ain't got time to come back home. So to me, that's a good thing about it. I didn't know also how many drones get lost. And there's actually a company out there that actually retrieves drones. And they have the ability to retrieve drones, but that made me think more about, making sure I got that home feature on my drone. All right? And then I like this one too. So we surrounded by a lot of good things that we can use that can help us. This natural language processing, you got these earbuds. And so I work with a lot of different ethnicities. And so a lot of times you'll go by and people switch to their native language. And so you be like, I don't know what they're talking about. But the bottom line is these earbuds translate. So if you're in the middle of a conversation or someone's in the middle of a conversation and you walk by with the earbuds on, it will translate in real time. I really like that as well.
I gotta get some of those.
Yeah, I mean, they online and they not expensive. They like $40, I would say. So, but the point of it is that technology has changed that language barrier. You know what I'm saying? And it's always going to continuously do that. So, like it or not, it's here. And, if that's something you're interested in, because a lot of this stuff is very interesting to deal with, and even from a gaming standpoint. I remember when games were dots. They weren't even figures and images. They were just something you move around. I don't know if you remember Pong. Pong was one of the first video games that I encountered. But it was just a paddle and a dot bouncing across the ball, across the screen. And from there, we got almost realistic gaming stuff. And so to me, that's a leap in just the gaming part. There's a lot of money in that as well. They have gotten to the point where now they have real live competitions and you get paid. What is it called? When you can game and you compete against each other?
Like esports, I guess.
What is it?
Esports?
Esports?
Yeah, just like electronic sports.
Yeah. So anyway, they got forums and platforms where people compete against and especially the onset of online and gaming online, that has changed everything. Because now it's bigger than just coming over to somebody's house and y'all playing against each other. Now you playing against whoever signs in or whoever logs in, which makes it real extreme competition. So I think that's a good thing too. And expert systems, they will continuously be out there for us to take advantage of. So I encourage you all, if you're interested in any of these things, try to get involved, especially cybersecurity, which is our next week's discussion. I hope y'all bring it for the cybersecurity part, because it's a lot in cybersecurity. It's a lot. We can start with emails, we can start with viruses, but it starts mostly, in my opinion, with cybersecurity is touching a file, opening a file. That's what. But we'll continue that discussion next week. I hope you guys have something. You bring your thinking caps, because that should be good debate. That should be good. Not really debate, good conversation, especially if you want to learn more. I'm just getting into cybersecurity, but as I think about it, it's nothing more than securing your computer, and it's always been that, securing your computer. It's just now gotten into the email and all these other different forms, but it's still about securing it yourself, the individual. It starts really with the individual, not even the email. It starts with your behavior. If you're curious and you click on everything and you want to open everything and you causing a problem. And if you want to be a presence on the internet all the time, your digital footprint is this big, you asking for somebody to hack your data. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, if you don't have anything, I think I am done for today. I think, let me see, wait a minute, yeah, I'm done. And you are free to go.